we were asked to try to describe what we understand to be the benefits of DNA in genetic genealogy, and also some of the drawbacks. It's not 100% what you think it might be, and it has some good points and some bad points. But I'd like to sort of give you an overview of what it is, and basically, there's three types of DNA, and all three are useful in genetic genealogy, tracing our roots. Two of them can go much further back. One is called mitochondrial DNA, and that comes from the mother's line. And one is the Y chromosome that comes from the father's line. Both of those can go back approximately twice or even further back than you can get from the nuclear DNA that comes from the nucleus, your chromosomes. And those are called autosomal DNA, and that come from both parents. And every generation, there's a halving of the amount of autosomal DNA because half of it is discarded and the other half is passed on. But then you get another half from another parent, so you still have a full complement, but you don't have the same ancestors. So this shows that it's important, if you're doing autosomal DNA, to have a lot of different people researching their lines, because not everybody gets the same DNA. Even though yours gets diluted out, maybe someone else didn't get theirs diluted out. So it's important that you have autosomal DNA as well. And that's probably at least the most useful in the near ancestors, not the far ancestors. And autosomal DNA works, well, it works by segment matching. Basically, each generation passes segments, DNA segments on each chromosome to descendants, and different descendants get different segments, but you have matches. So a lot of these DNA testing companies give you a list of all your matches, and they show you exactly which segments you share with those matches, and that can be very, very important, very useful. In fact, and also the chromosome browser that they provide shows you actually which you share across all of your chromosomes with that particular person. And then if you add a third person and you have a single segment that all three of you match, that's called a triangulated segment. And a triangulated segment can be very useful in determining which ancestor gave you that particular small piece of DNA. There's approximately 350 segments in every person's genome, and you can theoretically trace every one of those to a common ancestor that gave it to you if you find enough matches. So it's very important, if you're doing autosomal DNA, that you have a lot of people doing a lot of different research with a lot of different matches, because every one has a little different piece of that DNA. So they're basically the main tools for analyzing or evaluating your matches are the chromosome browser, and many of these companies that you see here have a chromosome browser, and it lets you visualize where you match on which chromosomes, each of your matches. And then triangulation means that you have three or more matches that all share that same segment. And the smaller the segment, the further back it is. And there's actually measurements. Most of these companies give you a listing of how how many centimorgans, which is a measure of the size of the segment, you share, you and your triangulated group share with each other. And that gives you an idea how far back that common ancestor is. And then there's a third tool called clustering. And Ancestry has just promised that they're going to come out with a new clustering tool. And that could be very useful because what it does is takes all your matches and clusters them in groups that have a common ancestor. So that's makes it a lot easier. It saves you a lot of time when you're analyzing it. But I can only recommend that until the clustering tools are better developed. There are also some other clustering tools in these other companies, so you should check them out as well. But until that's better developed, you need to actually have as many people as possible, and as the older the people that you're working with, the better, because with time and generations, the DNA gets diluted to a point where you get beyond the point where you may not even have any DNA at all from that particular ancestor. So those are the things that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted Denise to talk a little bit about these companies. I'll just briefly say that Ancestry has the largest database, but it doesn't have the best DNA tools. So when you try to connect a cluster or a triangulated group with a particular ancestor, you need to have a lot of family trees, and Ancestry has that in spades. So that's one of your main tools. Family tree DNA has a chromosome browser and allows you to do matching as well. Ancestry shows you DNA matches as well, but it just tells you how many centimorgans or how big of a segment that you have with your matches. 23andMe, I probably wouldn't even recommend, but they do have some health data. MyHeritage is really good because it now is aligned with family tree DNA, and they have a chromosome browser. And at one time they had a clustering tool, but I'm not sure they still have it. But it allows you to do a lot of triangulation. So that's one that I've used a lot. And then Living DNA is in England. So if you have English ancestry, that's good. MyHeritage is good if you have European ancestry because they're located in Israel, and they have a lot of people testing from Europe. And then GEDmatch is quite good. It doesn't actually do the testing, but you can upload your data to GEDmatch, and it has a number of tools, including chromosome browser and triangulation. But it's the best tools are in the tier 1, and that requires a subscription. Many of these you can take a GEDCOM file or a DNA upload and put it across many of these for free. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say, and I'd like Denise to talk a little bit about some of the other features of the tools.
Hello there, I'm Denise, and we have had a little bit of fun in the last few days looking all over these things, and I appreciate Francis sending me information, and Robert too. So this is kind of fun for me. We have done genealogy for many, many decades, started when in the 1960s, and of course it has evolved into the DNA testing that we really are amazed about. in today's time. Now, there are a couple of brick walls with this group, with the calls, and one of them is the Bowen line, and one of them is the Tiffany line, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Now, coming back to, let me see, how do I go back? Okay, I'm going to do a previous slide. Just talking about these groups a little bit more. Wanted to mention that 23andMe might not be around for much longer, so I don't want to waste money on that testing place. It has had financial trouble, and they are looking for buyers. Family Tree has one big advantage that Dennis did not mention, and I just didn't want to overlook. That is that it is a site where other sites, DNA from other sites, can be uploaded to, and then you can use their tools. And I think the uploading is free in some cases. I'm not 100% sure, but the data from the other sites can be uploaded to them. And Family Tree has the advantage of having two different tests that are not available through the other places. And that is the Big Y, which traces a male line farther back into the past, and also the mitochondrial DNA test, which is for the female line that can be used. MyHeritage, I personally really can recommend MyHeritage. If you're looking for ancestors from Europe, that is a phenomenal site. It also has the ability to have really good family trees. And I believe it's Ancestry and MyHeritage are sharing now trees. Maybe I'm correct, Michael Litchfield, you would know better than I know about that. But they have kind of combined their resources into doing things together.
Family Tree, yeah.
MyHeritage and Family Tree also. So some of these sites are trying to work things out together and make it more user-friendly. Ancestry is at the forefront with us, about 26 million people having tested, and MyHeritage is coming up to very high numbers very quickly because the Europeans have started to really test heavily. Now, some of these tests, just for practical information, you need to know that some older people have trouble with providing spit tests. And one of the things about these is Ancestry requires a saliva test, while the other ones, well, 23andMe DNA do also, but the other ones just require a cheek swab. And that may be easier for elderly people to handle. And I can't overemphasize the importance of having the oldest person in your family tested and their DNA being stored or made accessible to you in the future. So it is best to start with the oldest people to get them tested. 23andMe had a big population that went to them because they were focusing on health data, and that actually broke them because people were flocking to them. But pharmacy companies also flocked to them, and they sold out a lot of the data, of course, with the permission of the people who were being tested. So yes, some of that data could be used for future medical research, but that has kind of faded away. I wanted to touch one other thing. Some of you have mentioned forensic testing. I wanted to make sure that everybody understood what forensic testing is, because I met Cece Moore. I'm sure some of you have heard about her. She's done television shows, and she's actually a very the #1 experienced forensic genealogist. What that means, it's not so much that she's doing genealogical research, even though she's an expert in that, of course, but she is looking at live people in DNA databases, and that is mainly for criminal or medical reasons. And she uses all of these sites. She uses GEDmatch quite a bit because it is like the big universal pool for all of this other data that can be uploaded to them. What she does is she traces from a particular DNA sample among living people. She's trying to find a living person or within a few generations. So this is kind of like forensic means that it is done among the living, not so much with family trees going back into the faraway past. Now, she does go some of these cases required that, but most of that is among living people. And I will tell you in the end something that I've discovered by using a little bit of forensic genealogy to help you guys. The tools within those sites are matches to relatives, cousins will pop up. Chromosome browsers are there, triangulation, like Dennis said, and clustering will be available in most of those sites. Also, what has come up recently is the paternal and maternal phasing, which means that it actually can tell you which relative is on what side of your family, if they're linked maternal or if they're linked paternal. And this is something that has been quite helpful to a lot of people, and people have been waiting for that feature. There are always new features being added, and I want to emphasize that even though DNA testing and the findings of it are amazing, but they are limited. But that may not stay so in the future. Like every other year, something happens in the research with DNA that opens up another door into the past. The ethnicity estimate is basically just a calculation of how many people that your DNA matches in certain regions. It's not 100% sure to tell you that you're from a certain region, but it does mention that you have a certain percentage of a certain DNA that can be linked to a geographical area because you have many, many other matches that are from that area. So it's not something to rely on 100%. It is a nice hint, but it is not exactly the ultimate open door to knowing where your ancestor was from, and especially not to a specific town or region. They're trying to pinpoint that better, but it's not. What I've heard from you people is that Bowen and Tiffany are your brick walls. The goals are basically to find information about those two lines, about Nathaniel Bowen, previous to his death in about 1846, and Christopher Tiffany beyond his marriage in 1784. I'm a firm believer that the only way that things can really proceed with a lot of genealogy is by paper. And that means documentation, finding documents that prove a certain fact beyond any doubt. And there are many questions among these two people, what can be relied on, but we have these two dates approximately. And I've got some hints on where to go on that. But both were in the 6 to 7 generations from Anson Call, and from us, actually from our generation. Dennis is a descendant of Clelas, in case I didn't hear him mention that. And I think Robert and him are second cousins, and therefore they're approximately the same generation. And from that generation on, it is approximately 6 to 7 generations to either Nathaniel Bowen and Christopher Tiffany. Why that is so important, I'll explain to you in a minute. All the younger generations will, of course, be further away from those from the data that we can gather from Nathaniel Bowen and Christopher Tiffany, their DNA breaks up 50% by each generation. So here we have 6 to 7 generations back. And all the younger generation will, of course, share less DNA with these two people. How many generations? This is kind of a rough draft. It's from Dennis to Hattie Jones, Clella May Call, Anson Bowen Call, Anson Call, and then Cyril Call married Sarah Tiffany, and her father was Christopher Tiffany. And in that case, you have to understand the inheritance of DNA. And your own self has 100% of the DNA that you inherited from all of these ancestors, but from your parents, you inherited 50% from each. Then your grandparent, of course, you only inherited 25% from each grandparent. And as the generations go back, it halves each generation. So by the time we get to the 5th generation, only 3.125% of the DNA that you carry came from the 5th generation back. The 6th generation, it is 1.56%. Well, if any of you are familiar with percentages, you know that 1% is 1 in 100. So here we go. There may not be 100 people who come from that line who might carry that 1.56% and be a match to your 1.56%. Because 6 generations back, that has all been diluted by the time it gets to you. So Nathaniel Bowen and Christopher Tiffany fit into that generational problem. And so going with just a DNA test, a simple DNA test, may not give you the answers that you really need to be able to find the connections to these people. But if you get enough people to test in the future, that may change. It may go from, that you have more DNA to deal with. And so that could change.
And let's search.
We are dealing with the Tiffany brick wall. Much in that line is unknown. And also with the difficulty of accessing German records from war years. However, again, Europe has done an amazing job reconstructing genealogical records, and records from wars are often not burned or missing, but they have restored much of what they thought was lost. The interesting thing that got me interested in Tiffany a long time ago was that it is an unusual name. Number one, it is associated with jewelry that is my business. And so I was always intrigued to find a Tiffany name among the Call family. And what made me even more curious is that I kept reading that there was a German connection of Hessian soldiers, etc. I know that there is a ton of information online on family search and family tree and all sorts of people who are very curious about this family. So eventually you have enough powerful people looking at this that maybe something new will trickle through, because so many people are showing an interest and making an effort to deal with that line. And also with MyHeritage and more European people testing, this may reveal some more geographical important information. And I know that some of you have done some searching in the Diefenbacher or Diefen family name among German groups of people, but that apparently has not really been successful. But again, more research is being done, more records in Europe have become available. MyHeritage is the site that I would encourage all of you to test on if you're wanting to contribute to maybe feeding the Tiffany line some more information and seeing where the ethnicity information can go. That may be a little bit of a hint there if indeed some of these matches show German heritage. That is a good clue. Tiffany is not a German name, and that was intriguing to me because I'm a German speaker, and I immediately knew that that was not the name that they would have come with had they come from Europe. And it would have been a very big signal in German war records or military records if that name would have shown up, and I doubt that it ever will. Because it is not a German name. Recommendations about the Tiffany brick wall. I would recommend, and I used to be a member many decades ago of the New England Historical Society. And that is a group of people that are very dedicated. And I don't even know if they still exist today. But it came to mind when I heard about this little talk today. And I would think that in Vermont, since we don't know exactly where this family lived or came from, or the Canadian border area, I think geographically, that would be a source to go and try to find to contact historical societies or local areas from as close to where Tiffany lived or died or got married. And I would recommend hiring an expert who is an expert in that specific region, not just somebody from Mormon professional groups, but it takes a little bit more of a local view at this, that are experts in the Revolutionary War history of those areas. The paper trail, if it exists, is the only way to really find Tiffany family, I would say, or once more technology comes along, to look for DNA evidence. And that can definitely happen, but it is not doable right now. Now, looking for descendants of these people may also come in handy, but I looked a little bit, and Tiffany, this family line wasn't very strong in pulling through to current times. So they, married other people, and there is really no male line that I could find that comes down to the current from this man. Now, coming to the Bowen line, autosomal research in this case may be limited in its usefulness because it has the same problem as the Tiffany line. It is due to the 6 to 7 generation distance. The DNA has petered out. It has, been divided 6 or 7 times, and there's very little bit of centimorgans left to really research. My look at the Bowen line was interesting because there is a hallelujah moment, and it's not going to come from autosomal research. It's not going, in either case for both families, it's not going to come from a mitochondrial testing because there are too many generations where people, where the line switched from mother to father to another name. But there is a hallelujah moment with the Bowen line, and I will fill you in about that one. Autosomal research, trust what I've said, may be limited use to find something useful. However, there is the big Y DNA test that Dennis talked about in the beginning, which can trace an all-male line to a common ancestor in the far past. Well, I researched Nathaniel Bowen a bit, and he did have male descendants all the way down to current times. Of course, when you're doing a male line, it has to come from a surname that continues on to the present, from the ancestor to the present, or vice versa, from the person who lives today back to their male ancestor, but it can only have males in that line. So I researched a little bit and I came down about 6 generations to 2 people who are alive today, who are male descendants from Nathaniel Bowen, and they are actually sons of sons of sons of sons. And if they took the big Y-DNA test, that could show you a older lineage, several hundred years ago, of a common ancestor. And that would be kind of overjumping a brick wall and finding somebody farther back, even though there may be a brick wall that still stands. You may overjump that brick wall by doing a Y-DNA test and finding a common male ancestor that is beyond that. These 2 people, I have their names, and I wasn't going to publish them here for privacy's sake, but I found that one lives in Arizona and one in Bountiful, Utah. So it wouldn't be too difficult to contact them if any one of you, your genealogy fans or genealogists in the family wanted to do that. And I would highly encourage that the Call family, I'm not sure if they have a budget for such things, but I would encourage them to ask these 2 people, at least 2 people exist, if they would be willing to take a big Y-DNA test, which is a little bit more costly, but you may want to encourage them by financially helping them if that is a need, or if you wanted to make them enthusiastic about becoming a key part in finding your missing Bowen line ancestor. And I just wanted to thank you for listening. And if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Dennis and I probably can talk about this for days, but we're not going to bore you for the rest of the evening. So thank you for having us. Hope this helped.
Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Jenny.
So we actually had Aaron do a DNA test before he passed away in 2018. And does anyone know who has it? Who has access to it?
Yes, I have access and I uploaded that to MyHeritage as well as my DNA.
Great. So Aaron is actually only 4 generations away from.
That's why it's really important to test the older people first, because they are close. And that's where it's really, really important to get their DNA to match it to that, because they have the closer link. They've got more centimorgans matching there. Yeah.
Right. So can we use Aaron's DNA to connect to Nathaniel Bowen?
Yeah, it should be able to if there are enough people matching Aaron. But let me
explain.
Dennis,
you need to look at triangulated groups with Aaron, and say yourself and Aaron. If you is Aaron's data on MyHeritage?
Yes, I uploaded it.
Okay. Well, I think I have even used that a few times. So don't get us wrong. We're not saying that this is impossible. We think that it's a challenge, but there's still a high probability that if enough people check their matches and then do triangulation, try to find a second, third, fourth match that all match on the same segment, that segment can be traced to a specific ancestor, and that could overjump a brick wall too. So don't get the idea that autosomal DNA won't work. It might if enough people. It's kind of like, with enough shovels you can do anything, but Every different person inherited a different group of DNA segments. That's the whole thing. So if enough people look, somebody's going to see something, whereas an individual might not, because the probability is low. But if you have 1,000 people, one of them is going to see something.
And the triangulation feature is going to come in really handy in that case, because if you've got Aaron's DNA access to it and you've uploaded it to maybe GEDmatch, that may even tell you more, because there are more features on GEDmatch to put people together. And also the upcoming clustering program on Ancestry may be quite useful with that.
For instance, my DNA and Dennis's DNA, if they match Aaron's, will show that that match came from Anson Bowen Call, because Dennis and I come through Harriet Kazare and not Julia Abegg. And if we get another match with Uncle Willard's descendants, Uncle Willard did not come from Anne Mariah Bowen. So we know that that match goes another generation back to Anson Call. So that's why having lots of family members tested helps.
Thank you, Michael. That's very informative.
A lot of people say that we shouldn't look at really small segments, because you have a probability or possibility of being led astray. But those are the ones that are going to give you more information about the people, the ancestors who lived 6 or 7 generations ago. So maybe if you sort of concentrated on the smaller segments rather than the larger ones, you could find the more distant ancestor.
Any more questions? We love questions. We can't always answer them, but
Stop sharing.
I'd like to see us pursue that Bowen. If we got 2 Bowens that we can contact and having a Y chromosomal test or a DNA test, that to me it seems the most important thing we could do next.
well, it was an interesting adventure, because I kind of followed CC Moore's steps down, even looked at grave sites and current information that is kind of outside of genealogy to find these people. And I didn't know if, there was a son of a son of a son. So I just followed obituaries on down, which was an interesting way. But I can let you know the names of the people, and you can go farther with that. But I didn't want to announce them to everybody here. I didn't know, how private you wanted things to remain. But that might be a nice little idea to confront somebody who wanted to become part of this big Call family project. But I can send you those, Francis or Robert.
And I see a question in the comments. Should we all of us use the same company?
The more companies, the better. But if you wanted to do one Ancestry, of course, will have the most matches for you. Family Tree DNA has the most useful programs. But again, Family Tree DNA, you can upload your data from other sites into them at lesser cost than trying to do it on with all the different companies. MyHeritage, I would highly recommend, but that would be more for the Tiffany line in case it does link with something German.
Now, at Roots Tech, I visited with the Family Tree DNA people, and they said that they offered until the end of the month a free transfer. So if anybody has DNA that you've had tested on one of the other sites, then you need to try to contact Family Tree DNA, and they will allow us, or they allow, because of the special they were running, they will allow you to transfer your data to the Family Tree DNA. I can't remember if we missed this window, and apparently it's till the end of the month. So we've got until Monday.
Francis, that's really worthwhile. That's really worthwhile.
A lot of sites actually allow that for their basic service. You can upload your DNA results, and you can upload your GEDCOM or your family tree for free. But then they have advanced tools, and sometimes you have to pay extra or get a subscription to use their advanced tools. But sometimes that can save you hours of just randomly looking at your DNA rather than letting a computer program go through it and try to sort out the similarities and the commonalities.
Also, all of these companies have sales. So you just want to keep an eye out. If you haven't tested with one of the companies you want to test at, just keep an eye out for a sale. But uploading your data to these companies is for free is, of course, something that everybody should do. The more places your DNA is, the more likely it is to find matches and to find ancestors. So yeah, we've tested on all the sites. I have found some interesting things because not all people test on all the sites. So you just basically have to go fishing to find out if anybody bites.
But we've uploaded our data to all the sites. So that's helpful. And then you periodically have to go and visit each one to see if you have any new matches, new information.
We just had someone come in, if you noticed, that from Brother Evans, Richard, that they're having a sale on MyHeritage DNA right now. So I think we need to come up with a plan for our family to be able to do this. Some of us are new. Some of us, like you, have been doing this for quite a while. And Ara, who was trying to help work out this, was in favor of getting somebody in Vermont, just exactly what you said, to hire a genealogist in Vermont that could look at Vermont records. And that's where they've had some Nathaniel. There is a Nathaniel Bowen in Vermont, but we can't verify it's the right one. So anyway, we need to hire a genealogist in Vermont. We need to have people in our family take DNA tests, and then we need to have some people contact the person in Bountiful and the person in Arizona and see if we can get them to take the
And Francis, one more thing, that if there are Bowens up in the Vermont area, what were we saying, that were we doing the Tiffany up in Vermont, or
Bowens or Vermont?
Bowens. If we're doing Vermont research, then it could be that there are the Tiffany's that are not related, that seem to be a different line. If the descendants could test, that would be really helpful to see if indeed those lines cross somewhere or not. So any Tiffany, anybody with a Tiffany name up there needs to be looked at. And a researcher that is familiar with that region and the history should be the most beneficial.
Rather than taking everybody's time right now, we'll get our genealogical committee together. What we need from everybody listening are your contributions. We're going to need to hire some people to help do some actual on the ground research in Vermont. And then we may need to pay for some DNA tests and it is interesting. I did talk to the people at Roots Tech and the Family Tree DNA, and it's about a $400 or $500 test. So but it does give a lot more information, and it stays with the family line. Most people are not going to take the Y test,
right?
But if we can find those two people, they may help pay for their test. Might be something that help
be worth it. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and we'll get our committee working on this and keep everybody posted with emails and go forward. I think this has been fantastic, and we just so much appreciate you helping us with your knowledge and what we can do to move forward. This is incredible.
Well, thank you for having us.